So hey, welcome to this podcast. This is episode 32. My name is Tim Mitchell and I am in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined once again by Jonathan Kuline in Mississauga, Ontario.
Hello there.
And I'm also joined by Jaime Lopez Jr. in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
Alrighty then. Okay, so starting off the bat here, we have some fact check. So I have some fact check. Did you add some fact check, Jonathan?
I did not add fact check. I clearly the thing slipped through the cracks on me. So
isn't that how you got on the show? Like
I feel like I feel like I've let the team
You're
down.
Letting down your end.
Yeah.
You're letting down your end. Well, I just wanted to make sure that the Whovians out there aren't bursting blood vessels in their head, because when you say timey-wimey, because the actual expression at 5:49 last week it should actually be wibbly wobbly timey-wimey.
Wibbly wobbly timey-wimey.
Yeah.
And that is how they'll fix the Avengers in Avengers Endgame. Wibbly wobbly.
With the wibbly wobbly timey-wimey stuff?
Yeah.
Timey-wimey things? Cool.
Yeah.
All right. And at 14 minutes in the show, I mentioned, I believe it was Whiplash I called it, but it was actually, the movie was called Whip It, and it starred Juno star...
like Ellen Page.
Ellen Page, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Also star of X-Men, the next generation, whatever. So the movie was called Whip It. Sorry?
First Class?
First Class, yes. The movie was actually called Whip It, and it was not directed by our friend from Ghostbusters. It was actually directed by Drew Barrymore. So sorry, Drew, I didn't mean to take that away from you. And at 34 minutes, I mentioned The Candidate as a movie, but The Candidate was a movie about a different candidate running for president. I believe it was Robert Redford, but the one I was thinking of was The Contender, where Jeff Bridges, the dude, was the president, and it was like probably about 6 months after the Dude movie came out, which is, I'm having a real hard time
Big
today.
Lebowski.
The Big Lebowski. 6 months after The Big Lebowski came out, so like all we could do is like every time he opened his mouth, we're like, dude's running for president, dude's president. It was just so hard to take.
The president abides.
The carpet really did, make the room. Right? All right. And that's just like my opinion, man. All right. So I guess we have some headlines to cover off here. So, because we have no Asks podcast, because nobody ever tweets us. Feel so left out by people. Anyway.
To be fair, I get it live after every episode. I get a lot of the live feedback here in the household. So
do you? Oh, that's true. Yes, you have the number one fan.
Our number one fan is always full of questions.
Oh, after we do the show or while we're doing the show?
After he listens to the show. Oh, I heard you guys talking about this. And then,
right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Jaime, I believe you have some headlines for us.
Yeah, before I go in there, I think my correction might need a correction because I'm probably going to get it slightly wrong. But I think Ellen Page was not in the X-Men First Class lineage of films. I think, or at least not the very first movie. I think it was X3 or X-Men 3, The Last Stand.
Yeah,
really?
She came back for the Days of Future Past one too.
Oh, that's right. So she's canonically
she's been Kitty
in both.
Pryde in both, I think, of the different ones. Yeah,
that's a good point.
All right.
So we've pre-corrected.
So what's Jordan Peele up to these days?
You know what he's doing? I guess this is technically follow-up too, but we have an actual date here for how the Twilight Zone and its appearance on CBS All Access this April 1st, very strange day, will make my CBS All Access seem that much more valuable than just Star Trek Discovery. So more than just a singular show, and I apparently won't have to wait for the Picard and Georgiou series to come out.
I wonder what excellent Canadian broadcaster will be showing it to us for nothing, Tim.
Oh, really? I wonder. You have any idea?
No, if I had to wager just based on how things have worked out, I would say space, but I have no way to corroborate that. So,
well, that's true, because space used to show until they turned into the All Star Trek All the Time channel. They used to show Twilight Zone episodes. I think they still do, actually, now that I think about it.
Yeah.
One night a week, or they used to do it every day at 7 o'clock or something like that, 7 p.m. Okay.
Oh,
What's
you
next?
know what?
What?
So they're going to show this on Thursdays. So does that mean Discovery ends like the week prior? I didn't map out to see when the end of the season is.
Ooh. Yeah, that sounds about right. Like, how many episodes are we going to get of Discovery?
Like 12 or 13, probably?
I have a thing called
is.
IMDb here, right here. I can look up the planned schedule for releases here while you talk.
Yeah, I'm going to guess that it ends immediately the week prior because Thursday nights is Star Trek Discovery night as far as CBS All Access goes. So
it's like they know you were going to pull the plug immediately after finishing the season of Discovery.
They really took my cancellation feedback to heart, and they said this cannot be.
All right, they're worried. So, yeah, okay. You can go on to the next thing. I'll come back to this. Oh, unless you want the answer right now. So we have episodes. We've had episode 1 and 2. Episode 11th is planned for March 29th, and there's a 12th, 13th, and 14th episode, but there's no date set for those yet. So
I see. So there will be a little bit of overlap, but
that's how they get you.
Certainly well timed. Yeah.
Well, they're probably going to have like a season splitter because that seems to be the way they go these days, right? They show you so much and then they hold off for a bit. You can't binge them all at once.
Right. So they're definitely teasing them. Am I correct in thinking that last season, it actually was split over the year, like over the holidays or something?
Yeah, I think they split it over the Christmas break last year for season 1, yeah.
But heck, that doesn't stop them from doing it this time. They can say, hey, look, everybody's in Cabo San on spring break, so no Star Trek Discovery this week, and then just have another break and then set it out at a slightly different time. Get a little bit more.
That's good. It gives me a chance to go to the Big Island and all that kind of stuff in April. All right, so what's Stephen King up to then, Jaime?
He is adding ever-increasing value to my CBS All Access subscription with what is being called a 10-episode limited series of The Stand. It's not the first time that it's been adapted, but I certainly think I'll be watching this one.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm like as familiar with The Stand. I'm really trying to think. So this article here mentions that ABC aired a miniseries back in '94, but I really don't remember what that looked like. I really focused more on that around the same era, It sort of movie aesthetics. I don't really know what this one looked like. I have to look it up.
Aren't they all from the same era?
There was a whole, Stephen King ruled the 1980s and into the 90s. They just kept making properties based on his work. The TV miniseries was not bad, but for anyone who's read the book, which is a monstrosity, it's huge and thick and heavy. There's a lot of story there that, sort of fell by the wayside. So it'll be interesting to see what it is they're going to do on CBS All Access as far as, it says 10 episodes, right? So that's something that we never would have gotten. Like, this is an indicator of the new era of television we're in, right? Before, you'd get exactly what you described, Jaime. You get a 2-part, Sunday night and Monday night on ABC. Tune in and get the It, mini two movies in a row. Whereas now we get, 10 hours to tell this story, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and in the article here it says CBS did not announce a release date for The Stand. Let me tell you here that it's almost certainly going to slightly overlap with Twilight Zone, or the week right after it ends, or it might slightly overlap or right after it ends with the Picard series. So
I was going to say, I think you're exactly right. You're going to go straight from Discovery to Twilight Zone to this to Picard to the Georgiou series and then back to Discovery. They're going to have you 365 now.
Just collecting the streaming channels.
That's right. Got to get them all.
Got to get them all. All right. So, and to get more for us there, Jaime?
Yeah, this is changing to a different streaming channel, that being Netflix, but apparently they're going to create a series based on the Resident Evil video game property. So that'll be interesting and exciting. I have to admit, I have not seen all of the Mila Jovovich verse Resident Evil movies. I know I've seen 3, because I think last one I saw was she was like in the desert or something, but there are like 6 or 7 of these things. I think one of them's a 3D movie. So I'm definitely well behind on that. Let me reread this article. I think it's supposed to be in that same sort of vein, but I don't know that it's necessarily in the same timeline.
Yeah, it's interesting, all these games that come to... Yeah, because it started out as a movie. Was it one movie, or did they do a sequel?
They 6 of them, I think.
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of them.
Is this the one with Mila Jovovich?
Yeah.
You probably remember her like jumping off the wall and kicking the zombie dog in the movie trailer. Yeah.
Actually, I think the first movie is filmed at Nathan Phillips Square, which is our city hall downtown, though, if I remember correctly, or maybe Armageddon or something like that. I remember her on a rope running down the side of the building at some point in the past.
Yeah, and this is well timed because they just released the what do they call it? A remake of Resident Evil 2 in a more modern style.
Huh. Yeah, people really like that. I've been reading on the blogosphere about that.
What is it that they like?
They've done a remastered version. So it was one of the sort of more iconic horror games of its era. Had a lot of fans, very influential on sort of future franchises, and built a fan base for things like Walking Dead and some stuff to come, and they've done an updated version of the classic game, and apparently it's been a hit.
So was it a first-person shooter type game? Because that was pretty popular back then when those things came out on CD-ROM.
Yeah, but it's those games are sort of zombie murder, but it's like a thriller, so it's a little bit of a slow burn at times, and there's creepy sort of mystery stuff. So it's not just run and gun action. It's not like Call of Duty or anything like that. It's much more slow and creepy at times. games. There are times where those games are genuinely unsettling.
Yeah, and because I'm sure Xavier will point this out to you in person. It's not a first-person shooter like Doom or Quake or Halo. It's a survival horror, so it's a lot more similar to like Alone in the Dark.
Yeah,
Maniac Mansion, arguably.
Right. Okay. But are you in the first person, or do you have a character that you're navigating?
No, I think you're third person. Is it?
The original edition of Resident Evil 2 was kind of it used, I think, to still use the pre-rendered scenes back on the PlayStation, and so you were seeing it from a third person, but from a like stylized movie angles sort of view. And the more modern Resident Evil, starting with like Resident Evil 4, started using the like Gears of War style third person, slightly behind their right shoulder sort of view.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Cool. Right. And I posted something here that's pretty much follow up. We've talked about the appearance of William Shatner's face in a number of, well, specifically in I believe in the Jason stories.
Halloween,
which is Halloween, right?
In the Halloween list. No, Michael Myers, Halloween. Michael Myers.
So yeah, sorry. And the rumor was that they had taken a mask of, and I thought it was just like a Hollywood, horror show mask of William Shatner and reversed it. But I found this through William Shatner's Twitter feed, actually, that they actually did a movie called The Devil's Reign where the characters' faces would melt. And you can see in the link in the show notes here that there's a picture of William Shatner wearing the mask that was made for his face melting scene. And that was taken by, inspired John Carpenter in Dark Star and even Texas Chainsaw Massacre to have that same sort of thing. But that actual mask became the mask that they put onto Michael Myers in the first Halloween movie, or second Halloween movie, because I don't think he's in the first one, right?
No, he's in the first one. You're thinking of Friday the 13th. That's Jason.
Oh, I think okay. It's Jason, yeah. So, so anyway, and that leads on to other inspirations, and particularly Greg Nicotero, who was influenced by a lot of these movies, has now taken that same sort of thing, and he's introducing a new character, which we're going to find out when Walking Dead returns, so spoilers for those of you who don't know, but the new characters are the Whisperers, who wear death masks over top of their faces, and they walk and act like zombies, but they don't think they are. Is that correct, John?
Yeah, the idea is that they survive by blending in. So they wear the skin of the dead, and they get the name Whisperers because they never speak at volume. They are the Whisperers. Very creepy characters that were created, obviously, by Robert Kirkman, the series creator, comic book series creator, years ago in the book, and have finally sort of made the transition to television. So really creepy in the books. Really interesting to see how creepy they are on brought to life, because the whole look like zombies but aren't zombies can be anywhere and are sort of creepy and silent. It's tailor-made for a show like that.
So question, how do they illustrate the whispering? Like, because usually have thought bubbles or speech bubbles in comics,
often what
right?
they'll do is they'll do a regular sized bubble, but they'll write the words smaller and centered in the middle with white space around them.
Okay.
So you get the illusion that if what would fill that bubble normally would be normal speech, that therefore it's been reduced in volume because it's been reduced in size and scope inside that bubble. It's actually a very effective visual storytelling tool.
That's cool. All right. Learn something new.
There you go.
All right. So Jaime, you got something for us?
Yeah, I mean, if your New Year's resolution was to collect as many streaming services as you possibly could.
Oh, cool.
This is the news for you, because the Criterion channel, people remember the Criterion collection?
Of course, yes.
Rather well-done DVD collections. I have...
Still coming out. They're still making them.
Yeah. Well, they've got a streaming service. And this Criterion channel is going to start for $10.99 a month US, or $99 per year, with apparently Charter cable subscribers getting a discounted rate of $9.99 a month, or $89 a year if they sign up before April 8th, which is when it debuts. I'm a little unclear on what their original programming is going to be. It says here that they will have Criterion's entire streaming library, along with a constantly refreshed selection of Hollywood, international, art house, and independent films. But I'm going to guess they will definitely need some sort of original series, sort of, corner. No, what do they call it? The key resident that will get people to come.
Well, for what it is they provide, again, I have, I think all three of us do, have a bunch of these discs. When they do the Criterion treatment on these movies, it's usually sort of the best version of the film that you can come by, with a lot of supplemental materials and a high quality version of the film, usually a lot of different behind the scenes people doing the commentaries, tracks, and stuff like that. If you think about the value, the expense rather, of the Criterion collection as a whole, and the fact that they have an exclusive on a lot of classic and well-revered films, you think about those things are like $30 US a pop. You could make a case if they put that entire catalog out there and you are a fan of that high-end film and that sort of, the art house films and the auteur films and things like that, it might be worth it. I don't know that it'd be worth it. I mean, it says they're going to constantly refresh it, but right now Criterion puts out 3 to 4 titles a month every month, and they're all excellent. They have very good taste in movies. But even if you're getting 4 new movies a month, I don't know how long you'd hold on to your subscription.
Right. Yeah. And I spend a lot of my time watching Turner Classic Movies just because I like to see the old films, especially around Oscar time and awards season, because they'll show a lot of Best Actor, kind of nominations from the past, and some of my favorite films are the Criterion ones. Like one of my favorite films is For All Mankind, which is I have that in various VHS and DVD and all that kind of stuff. But when they went to do the Criterion version, for instance, they actually went and got the film that they had frozen, from when they made it, because they went back to the original source material that the astronauts filmed on the way to the moon, and they scanned each frame by frame, and did the best high quality rendering they could for each frame. So you're not just getting a movie that's been transposed into Criterion, quote unquote, doing air quotes, but they actually go through and they painstakingly reproduce. And they, if it's an older film, they'll retouch the image and say a Photoshop or something like that to make it that much better but clearer for the size format. So you're right. They do spend a lot of time from the art house perspective, or from the, I don't know what you call what do you call a film audiophile film person type of thing? They go all that.
Yeah, the cinephiles. Yeah,
cinephiles. Yeah. So they take that approach to it.
Yeah, and again, the movies that they like, they are committed to sort of the highest sort of they are the ones who bring the Kurosawa movies, the Fellinis, the Ingmar Bergman, the Truffaut, like the real high end stuff. They do lean into the pop culture stuff. Sometimes you'll get the David Cronenberg, you'll get some of the Terry Gilliam, right? They did a great version of Brazil, right? Mm-hmm. They do some of that stuff too, but they really make sure that like some of these sort of timeless classic films get sort of the very best version of themselves put forward. Movies that would have been made a long time ago that are available or had been available in media on VHS or DVD. These guys do, as you say, like a beautiful restoration of these movies that look like nothing else. I have a couple of the Kurosawa ones, and they are breathtaking in the way that they are brought forward. From the first time I saw them on a VHS cassette, they looked like spotty and covered in grain and bits of filth flying across as you're watching them. Now they're immaculate. They're beautiful. So again, there's value there, but I don't know if it's $100 a year US or
is that what it's going to be? Or I guess it's $14.99 or whatever. Yeah,
$100 a year. Is that what you said, Jaime?
Yes, if you sign up before April 8th, it's $99 US per year, or if you do it per month at $9.99, you're talking rounded up to $120 because it's a few cents off.
So that's like $1,000 Canadian by my reckoning. So I don't think that's worth it, really.
That's a mortgage, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's crazy. I worry about Jaime's pocketbook with all these streaming services that he has to collect.
Well, and we expect him to at least have the month's free trial so that we can get in on whether or not we should bother spending our money on that, because it's always in America months before it comes here anyways.
Oh, that's
we'll
a good point.
Netflix before he will, though.
Sorry, what was that?
We'll get him on Netflix before he does. Though.
That's true. And
we'll get them for free on Space and Showcase and stuff. Well, not free. I mean, we do pay for those services.
That's true. That's true.
We paid like Tim Hortons money for that.
Yeah.
This next story makes me sad. Every time this particular character gets a gets a redo, I get sad, because it was one of my favorite characters growing up. I mean, of course, you'll find out who it is in a minute, but every time they bring out a new one, I think, oh, this will be interesting, and then they seem to take them away too quickly. So what am I talking about, Jonathan?
Well, news today from our friends at Deadline that the Batman, the much anticipated Matt Reeves version of the Dark Knight in movie form, is coming on June 25th, 2021. So we have a launch date, but it has now been confirmed by them that Ben Affleck is not returning for the role of Batman. Obviously, he's been Batman in the last few DC films: Batman vs. Superman, Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, Suicide Squad, Justice League. The reason they're saying is that the movie is going to focus on a younger version of Bruce Wayne, somebody near the beginning of the career. They have been clear in this article that it is not going to be modeled after Frank Miller's amazing Batman Year One storyline, because why would you copy a classic when you could completely make up something completely new? So yeah, it is a little bittersweet. You know, you never know what to expect from these things. We've had some good Batmans. We've had some not as good Batmans.
We had the nipples.
We had the bat nipples. You know, I don't know. You guys have any strong feelings about Ben Affleck's tenure, brief as it was? I mean, 3 movies.
Well, I look at it this way. He wasn't Val Kilmer.
He wasn't, nor was he Bat Nipples, Clooney, but, you know, didn't knock my socks off. I found that the scene in Batman v Superman is funny. There's so many things that people rag on Batman versus Superman Dawn of Justice for. It's the scene where Batman is just blatantly murdering people that kind of really turned me off of where they were going with this iteration of the character, because for longtime fans, Batman doesn't kill.
No, it's true.
So I found that to be a pretty shocking turn. Now, I don't blame Ben Affleck for that. I blame Zack Snyder. So not his choice. However, it's hard not to have left that indelible mark on the character. Again, we say what you will. You know, it's hard not to think of the fact that, you know, the Michael Keaton version also killed people ostensibly, and so did the Val Kilmer, and the, you know, other ones have done it, and although not quite as brazen or violently. But yeah, it just I don't have strong and happy memories of Ben Affleck's time. Maybe I'll look back with more whist, but especially coming on the heels of the trilogy of Dark Knight films, where Christian Bale knocked it out of the park, with the exception of inexplicably quitting for 5 years or whatever it was between the two last movies, which is the stupidest Bat storyline ever. I think he had a really tough role to fill. I don't think he was terrible. He wasn't the worst part of any of those movies. However, I guess it'll remain to be seen who they decide to bring in. If they're talking about a younger actor, you know, I don't know how young they're thinking, but immediately my mind went to Timothée Chalamet, because he's, you know, on the tip of everyone's tongues. Personally, I want them to cast the kid from Gotham, because I just love the idea of that. But
yeah, and he's getting quite a big too. Like I just caught an episode the other day. I haven't watched that show in a few years, but he's getting quite up there in terms of age. But it's interesting though. Like the thing about Batman for me, it's the portrayal of Bruce Wayne is what makes or breaks a Batman to me. Like, because I mean, once you put the cowl on, it doesn't matter what he does. But I mean, maybe from the point of view of his actions, whether he's killing people, like you said, or driving around on these big, you know, balloon tire motorcycles and stuff. But for me, the character, like, because Bruce Wayne is sort of a James Bond in a sense. You know, he's got to be suave and debonair, and he's got to have that sort of, there's no way he could be Batman kind of persona, right? I mean, Adam West didn't quite pull that off either, but even, you know, Adam West was a decent guy as Bruce Wayne, you know, a philanthropist and all that kind of stuff. But that for me is the thing that, you know, and you think of a number of people who could play that role, but you know, Ben Affleck isn't one of them for me. But still, I liked him as Batman. I wanted to give him a chance, but you know, Val Kilmer, no. George Clooney, maybe, you know. But yeah, Michael Keaton was cool, you know, and Christian Bale was too, right? But who else would you see as Batman?
What do you think, Jaime?
Batman.
Who could I see as Batman? That's a good question. I have to think about that one for a little bit. As far as Ben Affleck goes, I think he was, serviceable as Batman. Yeah, I'm not gonna, I'm just trying to think of his portrayal itself. In terms of who could be a Batman, is there a modern? So they said they're going to go for like a younger Batman, right? So that sort of shifts the tone a little bit. Where Dark Knight Rises, rather. Bale is like older man, and then this recent iteration of Ben Affleck, kind of older man sort of portrayals of like just like Danny Glover, they're getting too old for this, right?
Yeah,
I'd have to sit and think about who would play that.
The guy who plays Superman now, what's his name? From the Mission Impossible movie. Who plays
Cavill,
Superman?
I forget his first name. Henry Cavill.
Yeah, Henry Cavill.
Cavill,
he's the kind of guy that I could see playing Bruce Wayne, right? You know what I mean? Even more so than playing Clark Kent, right?
If they were going for older, it's John Hamm, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
There is no more Bruce Wayne. Like, that guy is the living epitome of Bruce Wayne. He needs to get a little more buff, but I mean, he's got that I'm cool without trying hard, thing down perfectly.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. The only other person that popped into my mind was, and he's a little bit older. He's in his late 20s. Was Nicholas Hoult, who was Beast in the last few X-Men movies, and he was he had that great role in Mad Max, right? He was the the shiny guy sprays his teeth and joins the gang. He I think could be really cool as that character too, but I don't know how young is when they say young, because I don't know if he's 28 or 29. I don't think that would cut it if they're going for young.
Right.
Interesting. All right.
Next up, we've got the first teaser trailer for the new Birds of Prey film dropped the other day. Very weird, very short. Doesn't even say Birds of Prey on it. It just it's got a smash clip of all these different characters just sort of posing, mostly focused around Harley Quinn, who's obviously going to be the star of the show. She stole the show in the Suicide Squad movie, so she's getting this spun out.
Same actress, yeah.
Same actress, yep. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys have had a chance to watch the trailer, but it's 30 seconds long, maybe 35 seconds long. It's really, really quick. Just the sort of fast paced thing coming at you, and it's hard to make a lot out of it. I've seen some dissections that people have done where they've slowed it down frame by frame and identified different characters and stuff like that. But again, it'll be interesting to see. I think that Suicide Squad movie was obviously a lot more style over substance. There wasn't a lot of there, but it was kind of cool to look at. I'm a little bit nervous about this for that, but I like that they're doing a female-centric movie. Birds of Prey, the comic book, was always one of my favorites. So I'm keen to see what they do with that. What do you guys think of if you have a chance to see this?
Yeah, I watched it really briefly, but you're right. It's just I only saw was Harley Quinn. I didn't really see anybody else in there.
Yeah, I also saw it as well. I'll take a look at the title. The official title is Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. It seems like they're going to lean more into the comedy side. I know that Suicide Squad suffered from being like sort of redone after the fact, where they had it dark and gritty, and then they saw Guardians of the Galaxy and say, that's really popular, maybe we should do that too. I have more hope that if they start with the premise of have it be kind of more lighthearted, it will fit together better. And I don't know, I think I enjoyed the take on Harley Quinn. Margot Robbie, not sure her last name is pronounced.
Yep.
She seemed to fit into the role pretty well for that more modern style of Harley Quinn. So, I think I'll give it a chance, especially after we discussed last week about, I hadn't seen Aquaman, but it seems kind of more a little bit lighthearted and fun, and certainly the Shazam movie seems like it will be as well.
Yeah. It's a new era for DC movies. They're not dreary.
Well, it remains to be seen.
Next up, we've got some news. So Zombieland, we talked about in our preview of movies that are coming out this year. Zombieland has got an official title. Zombieland 2, that is, has got an official title. It's Zombieland Double Tap. And in addition to the return of all the previous cast, we are also getting news this week that Rosario Dawson is going to be one of the members of the cast. I would watch her read the phone book. She's amazing. She's one of my favorite actresses. So I was already in for Zombieland. I thought it was a very, very fun look at the sort of horror survival genre film. And adding her is just the cherry on a beautiful Sunday. So really good news across the board there.
And it's been 10 years since the first one?
Oh yeah. Yeah. They had talked after the success, because the other one was sort of a surprise. It wasn't, I don't think, a hit at the time. I think it did okay, but it really got a lot of traction once it sort of made it into the, it was sort of perfect timing as it sort of entered into the streaming universe and people being able to watch things over and over again. It really gained legs there. And they talked about doing it for a long time, but a lot of the people in it sort of went on to become bigger and more famous very quickly. And so it became harder and harder for them to come back and bring everybody back. And I think it was like Incredibles 2. I think they wanted to do it right. They didn't want to just rush out and do the same thing over again. I think they wanted to wait till they had the right story. But I mean, think about that movie. So this is 10 years ago, right? So 2009 it came out. Emma Stone, pre winning an Oscar. Woody Harrelson, Jesse Eisenberg, who again at that point just blew up, went on to do the Social Network and a bunch of other great stuff. Abigail Breslin, obviously, got a great cameo. We got Bill Murray. So even just that was the four primary cast members: was Emma Stone, Woody Harrelson, Jesse Eisenberg, and Abigail Breslin. They all had some pretty good gigs after this. Multiple Oscar nominees in there. A lot of award film stuff. They've had a busy 10 years, so I imagine getting them on board for this, it probably took 10 years of logistics.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I saw that they did the 10-year challenge. That's why I sort of realized it was been 10 years.
Yeah.
Time flies.
Next up, we've got some excellent news from the Twitterverse. So Jon Favreau, if you guys aren't following him on Twitter, is a fun follow. So he's working on The Mandalorian, which is the first Star Wars series that's been confirmed for the Disney Plus app. The other day, he had Star Wars fans in a tizzy because he tweeted out a picture of a classic character from 1977 Star Wars that was someone I don't think anyone could have ever predicted would in some way. He hasn't said who. So for spoilers, you don't want to know anything about the series going in. As your 3, 2, 1, here we go. R5D4, the droid.
Uncle Owen, this one's got a bad motivator.
That's right. The one with the bad motivator, who in an alternate universe becomes Luke's sidekick and changes the course of Star Wars history, as apparently maybe has a little cameo, maybe a little role, who knows, in The Mandalorian. So he just tweeted out this photo, and everyone is speculating, what could this mean? Does this mean he's a character? Is it a cameo? Is it just a backdrop? Is he a background character? What's going on? So
serving drinks. Yeah.
Is this whole thing has all just been a plan for Jon Favreau to have a redemption story for the bad motivator?
Does this one take place prior or subsequent to A New Hope?
I don't think they've made that clear. I don't get the impression they've made that clear.
Okay. So it either is, here are the adventures that led to him getting too old for this stuff, or it's the happier story of like, they just put a new battery pack in this iPhone here, has a renewed vigor in life.
Oh, did you need a new motivator? Here you go.
Right.
So yeah, cool to see that again. I like. I don't need to be bashed over the head with nostalgia. Some franchises take it far too far. But hopefully there's some taste. So we'll see. And our last bit of news for this week, it has been confirmed. And I honestly, we talked about this last week during the Spockies. I know some people are looking forward to this. I don't want to jump down people's throats, but they've already confirmed that they are going to make a sequel to Detective Pikachu, the Pokemon live action / CGI movie that is coming out this year. Words fail me. I truly don't even know what to say about this.
I don't even know what that is.
Detective Pikachu is Pikachu is the sort of most famous of the Pokemon. He is he, she, it. I don't know what the proper pronoun is for.
Yeah, I'm not
Pikachu.
sure if Pikachu has a determined gender. I'm going to assume male, just based on the way they refer to that character in the American translation, but I don't know what the original Japanese does.
Well, we'll say it. Pikachu is a wildly popular character, one of the most iconic of this series of video games, and the Detective Pikachu thing has been a video game thing for a while. And so Ryan Reynolds will be voicing the voice of Detective Pikachu in this new movie. The trailer was one of the weirdest, most bat poop crazy things I've ever seen. I can't believe that it's a thing. And as we discussed last week, someone actually voted voted it into our most anticipated movie of 2019 in our Spocky Awards.
Did they?
Whoever that is,
I think it was a write-in, right?
Really needs to identify themselves to us. Please send us a hit us
on
up.
Twitter, hashtag.
We'd love to talk to you about this.
Or...
This is a fascinating development that we really need to talk about with you. So hit us up at Spockcast on Twitter. We'd love to hear from you. But yes, apparently this person's not alone because they've already greenlit a sequel. So, and this movie is not coming out for months. So,
well, we can't find out who it was, but we'll leave it at that.
Mwah ha ha.
I feel like this movie. I mean, of course, it exists because the Pokemon Company makes boatloads of cash off of the Pokemon franchise. But I also feel like it sort of exists purely to have the inevitable YouTube video mashups between this character and the Deadpool. Like, I can just see people pulling Deadpool quotes of the same actor, Ryan Reynolds, voice acting the Pikachu.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Yeah, that's really what it's going to be about, is just the meme factory going into overdrive.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. Well, that brings us to the main part of the show, the reason why we're here, and that is to talk about the Orville. No, to talk about Star Trek Discovery. So this is the spoiler part of the show. Yes, you will be disappointed if you haven't watched the show already. So go watch the show, pause the podcast, we'll wait. All right, now you're back. Okay, so I see I put some notes up here. John, looks like you put lots of notes up here.
Yeah, I might have taken some notes in the last.
Gone overboard. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So why don't we do that? Why don't we talk about this last episode called New Eden, which was broadcast last Thursday on the Space Channel, or CBS All Access if you're in the States. So yeah, you threw in a whole bunch of notes in there. Why don't you give it to us, John?
All right. So I'll give you a little synopsis and we can discuss. So New Eden, directed by Jonathan Frakes, make its own number one. So obviously another little return to the franchise from one of its most celebrated actors/directors. So we kick off the episode with Michael Burnham sharing what she's learned about Spock from reading his logs at the end of the first episode. Then we get the news from Pike that actually he does know where Spock is, which was the big sort of mystery at the end of the first episode. We find out that Spock has had himself committed because he is having these visions of the lights in the sky that we identified in the first episode, the big mystery for this season, the angels and the mysterious flashes across the galaxy. We get news that one of the signals is coming from the Beta Quadrant, which would be 150 years travel at maximum warp. But hey, we've got a spore drive, even though we're not supposed to use the spore drive, even though we went through a whole thing last season about how they decommissioned the spore drive and we're not supposed to use Stamets because that's immoral. And then they plug Stamets into the spore drive and they use it and they jump to that planet. So we get to see the cool spinorama effect of the disco as it jumps from place to place, jumps 150 years travel away into the Beta Quadrant and lands right outside of a Class M world where they hear a distress call, and turns out that there is 11,000 people, human beings, living on this planet. Very cool little discovery that they were actually survivors of World War III in the year 2053, and that the Angel, which is what Michael Burnham saw towards the end of the first episode, delivered the church to this place which they call Terra Elysium. When they got there, they were inside of a church. They decided that they would combine their religions into the one overall religion. So they worship this sort of combined Christianity, Buddhism, Muslim, Jewish, I think they say Shinto as well, religion that sort of all worships. They live in this sort of pre-warp society, we would sort of consider sort of pioneer-ish, but I guess they have electricity, so maybe early 20th century, maybe. So, while this is all going on the planet, they send down an away team, Pike and Burnham, and I forgot to, I was going to look up the name. What's her name?
Oesquin, or Oko as Tilly calls her.
Oko.
She grew up in a Luddite community, which is why they take her down, because she would be familiar with the kind of things.
Yes. So they go down to this planet and do an away mission. Meanwhile, Tilly decides to have this excellent plan to get a piece of the asteroid that they collected in the last episode and to take a piece off of it to try and build a dark matter interface for the spore drive so that Stamets doesn't have to hook himself up and go through the sort of trauma of having to be hooked up to this spore drive where apparently he's been having visions of his late husband. And so while doing that, Tilly gets blasted across the hangar bay and wakes up in the medical bay, and she's having a problem trying to figure out, you know, what she's going to do as they discover that the planet is actually surrounded by these mysterious rings that are releasing radiation and that could kill everybody. Tilly starts doing the problem-solving thing. She starts sort of going a little nutty, and she comes up with the plan to use the asteroid to draw the radiation away. They have a cool scene where they do donuts around the planet, and they slingshot the asteroid out there. It draws away all the radiation. Very cool. Meanwhile, on the planet, they encounter a local who seems pretty wise to the fact that perhaps Burnham and Pike and the away team are not necessarily locals. They're not from the north as they claim to be, and confronts them and figures out who they are. At one point, one of the locals powers up a phaser, and Pike jumps on it to try and not to have her detonate it, and ends up saving the girl, and ends up having to be they sneak him into the church where they get beamed up. So they end up going back to the planet and reconnecting with this guy and telling him the truth, but they also acquire this helmet that has video footage of the day that they were transported to the planet and shows this mysterious vision of the angel who saved them. And so we actually get to see this same vision, but actually recorded, of what Burnham saw at the end of the episode. And the mystery continues, but now we know that she wasn't hallucinating, that this thing is real. Meanwhile, Tilly, who had a little help in motivating herself in solving the problem of what to do and using the asteroid method to disperse the radiation, had a little help from somebody named May who was working in the medical bay. Maybe is having some hallucinations, because when she goes to look up who this person on the ship was, it turns out that not only do they not work on the ship, they do not exist, and actually was somebody she knew who died years and years ago. So we get some answers, and we get even more mysteries, and we get 2 episodes in, and we still haven't seen Spock.
It's that mycelial network at work again. You remember last year she had that blue thing land on her shoulder, and we kind of wondered about that. So maybe it's part of that, sort of plugging her into the network and that kind of stuff. A couple of things that they talked about here that you kind of missed over was the fact that they talked about, because it's a pre-warp society, General Order 1 applies, which is going to become the, what do we call it? I forgot what you call it in regular Star Trek.
Prime Directive.
The Prime Directive,
thank you. Yeah. And they also mentioned Clark's third law, where, you know, which is Arthur C. Clarke is famous for saying any technology significantly advanced is indistinguishable from magic. But Pike points out that it was been updated to say any sufficiently advanced extraterrestrial intelligence is indistinguishable from God, which is kind of what drives that whole thing. The other thing that they said in this show, and I'm kind of wondering now that I'm going to say it, if it's been said in other Star Treks, but they actually said set your phasers to stun in this show, which is a good thing, because Christopher Pike survives landing on the phaser. Otherwise, he'd be disintegrated, as we all know from those kind of things. Another thing too is that Detmer, who's the one who has to do the maneuver where she has to drive a donut to collect all this the material from the rings of this planet, tells Pike when he asks her if she can handle it, she says, "I've had my pilot's license since I was 12, sir." Yeah. So yeah,
a great line.
Yeah, so, and of course, you know, I think it was Saru said that you have 2 minutes and 11 seconds to Stamets when you had to run to jump in, do the second jump that they had to do today. Yeah. So, yeah, interesting. And we didn't see, what's her name, Lieutenant Ariam, which we talked about, had quite a number of lines in this show, and I didn't see Sarah Middich anywhere on the deck. I watched again today just to see if she was, like, tucked in the corner somewhere, but, So I guess she's been fired from wearing a goofy goofy mask. So, and they also, I think, at the end of it, he trades. I don't know if you talked about giving him the battery that would last them like 30 years or something like that.
Oh yeah, that powers the whole
planet.
Community up for them. Yeah.
And fires up their lantern again, which is what the miracle of the angels, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think, Jaime?
I liked it. I think it felt very, like the story felt like a sort of traditional Trek episode, mixed with a little bit of new for the style that Discovery does, a little bit more action heavy.
Right.
I think I'm not surprised that the direction is very Trek-like, given that, Jonathan Frakes not only appeared as, a starring role in Star Trek The Next Generation, but also directed many of I don't know about many, but at least some of those episodes and many subsequent Star Trek episodes for other series.
And a film.
Oh, that's right. Was it Insurrection?
I believe he did Insurrection, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it was very typical of a sort of Star Trek, away mission kind of story. And I don't know if you saw some of the parallels between using the magnet to unlock the cellar door, that they get locked in the cellar at one point. And then a few minutes later, we see the same thing with Peele using the asteroid chunk to magnetically pull the because it was an extinction level event. These rings were going to destroy the world in like 60 minutes or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
This, I think Jaime nailed it. I think this is a very Trek episode. It's probably the most Trek Discovery episode we've seen so far. It felt very grounded in the world that we know of Star Trek. And it come right down to the science versus religion, sort of not so veiled storyline that's going in there, where, these people are very devout and that their faith is very important to them. And of course, Burnham sort of at one point says something about, what if I worship science? Which is a very Trek motif. So yeah, it was a very it was very satisfying in that way. It felt very comfortable. This was sort of a very much a comfort food episode. I felt very not threatened. It didn't feel like we had talked about how sort of the galacticization of Star Trek. This felt much more sort of grounded in established Trek. But good.
It was the 40-minute solution that Jaime was talking about last week, right?
Yeah, but still built on the mystery. Like I still feel like it was weaving together an overall narrative. There were some good little sort of things that connected through lines from the first episode and through lines to where the season overall arc is going. We got a little more definition on some of the characters and the dynamics. It was cool to see, Pike on the mission with them and sort of, get to know him a little bit better. And I'm liking, again, it's his contrast is against Lorca, who we established last season was a jackass. To go from him being, and he was that before we knew that he was who he was in the first season. He was still pretty sort of gruff, and to see that sort of Anson Mount's playing. He's got he's very charming. He's got that sort of wry smile and the twinkle in his eye. He's got a little bit of a William Shatner vibe to him.
Exactly. Yeah,
not quite as campy, but
he could be Batman.
She could be Batman if they were going a little older again. But yeah, he's got this sort of joyfulness to it that's bringing a lightness to a light touch to this. He's got this sort of energy to him that's really enjoyable, and he plays well off of the other actors. I feel like he's really sort of there's a good connection there. I'm liking him so far.
Yeah, he's really opposite character portrayal from Hell on Wheels too, which is kind of interesting. If you're familiar with that show, he's sort of the central character of that show, but he's a grumpy gunslinger type guy, sort of a Clint Eastwood kind of character with unshaven and bad clothing and bad breath probably, but so completely different opposite character. It's interesting to look at him and realize it's the same actor. Yeah, because he's sort of doing that Bruce, what's his name, from the J.J. Abrams Pike characterization. Bruce Greenwood.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Jaime, is Tilly losing her marbles? What's up?
That's an interesting one. So a note I have here for myself is we have already seen established that Culber, the husband of Stamets saw him inside of the mycelial network, and way at the tail end of the last episode of last season, there was this little green dot, this like spore that ended up entering Tilly, like Tinkerbell, like going right into her shoulder sort of thing. And it makes me wonder if that green spore plus the hey, this dark matter asteroid causes the spores to act wild. I wonder if that was causing the what's the character's name? May Ahern to appear. Like it may not be a hallucination. very well could be, but it could also be there's this echo of that person in the network.
Yeah, it's May Ahern. And actually, Stamets tells I'm telling Jonathan, who's the writer, that he tells Tilly early in the episode that he saw his partner in the network, even though we don't, I think he flashes back on it, but he doesn't actually see him in this one. So other than the fact that he's pretty freaked out after the first time he does the jump, right? He just doesn't want to talk about it and walks away from her.
Yeah.
But so we kind of wonder, are we supposed to imagine he saw something in the stream as well? Plus, doesn't this sort of tie into Short Treks in a sense? Because she had that whole interchange with that one woman leader person. Didn't that take place in the medical bay as well?
No, that was the cafeteria.
Oh, cafeteria. Oh, okay, right.
Remember she sets off the food replicators and they start firing food across the room?
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a little reminiscent of that. There was a little bit of a, Tilly's a very unusual character. Again, I think she's delightful. I absolutely, I think she's just an absolute delight, and I can't get enough of watching her on screen. But her interactions with everybody are a little off. So it was weird to see her playing off someone who clearly was also a little unusual. May sort of presents herself as sort of, grinning and a little childlike. So interesting to see those two characters sort of playing off each other.
But if she's a manifestation of her mind, then that would make sense that she would be that type of person, right?
Yep. Or it could just be as she remembers her from being a girl, right?
But it's also that vehicle, when somebody gets knocked unconscious or they're in a coma or something, and they say to themselves, "Wake up, wake up, wake up," kind of thing.
It's happy.
Kind of sort of how
it's happy.
Happy. Yeah, exactly. same sort of. You see that in so many movies. Like even Trinity says it in the beginning of The Matrix. She says, "Get up, Trinity," to herself, right?
Yeah.
So, as if she's observing herself as a third person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think the little mycelial spore that landed on her shoulder from last season is part of this apparition or new connection she's got going.
All right, you're both on the record. We'll find out.
Yeah,
that's what I think here. A couple other things that I noted down. More of a trivia note on this one: the type of beam that Tilly is using to try to extract some of the ore from the asteroid, she calls it a Metreon beam. And I said, that sounds familiar. So I looked it up. And as far as I know, it is not something that actually exists, unlike baryons, I think, might actually exist. But the Metreon was what I remember Neelix from Voyager saying, that the Metreon cascade was this weapon of mass destruction that was used against his people. And that's how they ended up losing a war.
It's also the name of a mall on 4th Avenue in San Francisco.
I also saw that on the Google search. It's oh, that's right, near the Moscone, where Apple's developer conference used to be for many years. Yeah.
We're all familiar with the Metreon.
I guess another thing I was kind of curious about, just given the whole sort of angelic and semi-religious overtones and themes that have been going on in this season, I wonder how intentional the naming of the character Jacob, the person on Terra Elysium in New Eden, who seems to me like his name Jacob, in the Bible, the story that I remember the most for that character is Jacob wrestling the angel and not giving up until the angel gives him a blessing, which you could kind of look at as he is just this normal peon person, and here are these gods who have come down, and they, he doesn't give up. He even captures them, right? You could call that the wrestling part. And then at the very end, they give him the blessing in the form of that battery. I feel like that just seems like too much of a coincidence to not be an intentional theme in world building that they're going for.
Yeah, I mean, he said his whole ancestry was guarding the guardians of this beacon, right? So, and that his whole side of the family believed that there was tech and that the Earth had not been destroyed, and so on and so forth. And the three people coming here were manifestations of proof that he recognized them as being possibly from an off-world, as opposed to being from the north where the wall is.
Yeah.
And the other note I have is to ask each of you, and I'll even answer the question myself, as to whether you think that Prime Directive or General Order 1, is that
General Order 1, yeah.
Do you agree with Pike's decision that yes, this applies. Because there's definitely been a lot of chatter on the Twitterverse and on Reddit about like people for and people against the idea.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, these people are pre-warp. They're like us now, right? Like their brains wouldn't be able to handle transporters and things like that. Like, it would be indistinguishable from magic, which is why they bring up, I don't know why it's Clarke's third law, because it's the only law I know by Clarke. But Arthur C. Clarke, that is. I think it does apply. I always, it used to always piss me off when they pulled out the Prime Directive back in the day. Like, why don't you just tell people what's going on, kind of thing. But I could see how it would their brain space may not have enough capacity to fit in this kind of new thought, right? It would be so different, such a departure from their normal understanding of what life is and all that kind of stuff, right? So, and what's possible in science and things.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So you think it was correct that it does apply. So I'll put you on that one. What about you, Jonathan? What do you think?
It's a good question. It's interesting to think about. I think that in this case, I don't know that I would have applied it, because General Order 1, I think, was, or the Prime Directive was about non-interference with species that aren't developed. But we've already established these are essentially displaced human beings. I don't think it would be a violation to repatriate human beings that were absconded from their world, even if it was hundreds of years ago and these are the descendants. You're still bringing human beings back to where humanity is. I don't think that necessarily would be my view, that it would be an interference, because it's true they have their own society that's evolved in a certain way, but for me, they're still human beings who were displaced. We have yet to establish whether it's intentionally or unintentionally, but they were still displaced human beings, and therefore you could make the argument that they are not interfering with the society, they are rescuing human beings.
That's true, but they are from the 21st century. I mean, like in a century when we could barely create a Roomba properly,
but
right?
They are not from the 21st century. Their
right.
Families, their ancestors were from then. These people are just the descendants of those people. So I question whether, again, I think what you're looking at is essentially a bunch of human beings who were lost in space, who, yes, they've evolved their own sort of culture, but they're still human beings who were deemed 150,
light years away,
years away from wherever it was they started from, and that's not even where Earth was, right? Like, an incalculable amount of space away there. Again, I'd have to say no. I don't think it's a violation of General Order Number 1 or the Prime Directive to interfere with them, because they're human beings.
Well, it's true. I mean, from that perspective, like I kind of wonder why. It's kind of cut and dry. It's kind of a black and white thing here, because Burnham wanted to rescue them, and that's kind of sort of what you would see this. They're kind of castaways, right? And you always think that if somebody's cast away from society, you want to go and scoop them up and bring them back and put a warm towel around their shoulders and give them some Tim Hortons soup or something, and then tell them what's been going on while they've been gone. But 1,100 people, that's, I would think that, normally they would go back and call home and say, hey, what should we do with these people, right? But I guess they're 150 years away. They can't even get a message back, right?
Yeah, well, and again, it's 11,000 people, right? So 11,000 people.
It's a lot of people. I didn't get that impression from the show, but yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, they don't do a great job. They show you a little bit of a taste of maybe how they live, where it seems like they've got some slightly, like, again, it seemed like early 20th century. It seemed like there was sort of some developments, but it certainly was nothing, second half of the 20th century and certainly not 21st century technology. So you could make another case that's humanitarian to save these people, because, you could be helping them, and they are human beings who would have a right to the development of human beings over the last 3 centuries, where you could help them with medical, you could help them with science and technology and everything. Again, I feel like if it was an alien species, I think absolutely you're not entitled to interfere with them. But because they're human beings, again, essentially they're refugees, the descendants of refugees, who were taken from Earth, whether in a benign or act or in an actual purposeful rescue. I just feel like it probably, to me, seems like you could make a really good case for this being not applicable for General Order Number 1. Mm-hmm. What do you think, Jaime?
Yeah, that's a funny one because I think it's a very tricky problem, and I do appreciate that the show. I don't think the show gave us like a definitive answer either way, which is kind of good. It kind of is up to your own interpretation. When I was watching the show, like during the 60-ish minute episode, I felt right then my gut said, no, they're humans. This doesn't apply at all. And then after the show, probably the next day, I said, well, maybe it does. And it came down to a question of, do I view it more as these people are like people who are kidnapped and abducted? Sort of, but that would apply more, if it was like, the people who were actually taken, not their descendants, but the people themselves who actually taken. Yeah, you find them, you bring them back. No problem there. But their descendants, that's their way of life. And it struck me as being more analogous to, I don't know, this happened a little bit before the holiday break. There was an individual who was trying to do a mission of some sort on this island of folks who have been completely cut off from the rest of the world. And he died, right? But even if he didn't, he'd be in trouble because it was illegal to contact those folks, right? So there was
he was an evangelist, right? He was going to evangelize these people. That was his goal. Right? He was trying to bring religion to this island of people who were notoriously xenophobic.
Right. And so I think after the episode, I'm thinking, it's kind of more like this is their way of life and we shouldn't mess with it just because of, how long of a time it's been. It's not the actual people who were abducted. It's not even their immediate descendants where, maybe they sort of live in both worlds. These are people who are cut off from the rest of society. It's similar to those, that island of folks I'm talking about. But I have to say, it wasn't easy because I could be convinced either way. So I'm going to break the tiebreaker and say I do think that General Order 1 Prime Directive does apply in this case, but I totally understand if you're shaking your fists at the stereo right now and saying, no, I disagree.
I agree. I think you could debate it. I think it's a good debate. It's certainly interesting to look at it from a bunch of different angles.
I was going to say, though, it's a typical plot line where if the planet's going to be destroyed, they would just scoop up everybody and take them with them, right?
Yeah. Although we establish all the reasons why they can't just do that, right? Like that's
right. Yeah.
Yeah. Quick follow-up question is: we established that Jacob is hereditarily his family takes care of this beacon, right? That they're the ones sending this message out there. So his family sort of has followed this path. They've carried on this tradition. Does he tell his children about the truth?
Yes, I think he does.
Yeah, I think he passes it down as like, hey, look, don't tell your friends at school. Okay, don't tell the All-Mother. Yeah. But like, here's this thing that actually happened, and maybe when they're old enough, show them like, hey, here's how you take care of it, and you need to have your children pass this along.
Yeah.
But wait until our society is ready to accommodate this sort of change.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of science versus religion as a theme for a science fiction show, how about this week's Orville episode where we also had basically people who worship the stars versus people who worship science. This week's episode, All the World's is Birthday Cake, was basically again, felt like a very familiar Star Trek plot line. First contact, they go to this planet, Rigor 2. They discover that there's some unusual practices going around the hospital. They're performing C-sections on women to have babies that don't seem necessary in the doctor's opinion. Turns out that the planet is governed by astrology. They find out that Kelly, the first officer, and Bortus, they find out when their birthdays are and determine that these ones are the unlucky sign. They are jelliacs, and they throw them in the prison camp. There's a huge kerfuffle. What are we going to do? How are we going to save them? It was very retro Trek. And in the end, of course, they come up with a suitably Star Trek solution. They science it, and they create a fake star where their unlucky star sign had been, and fool the Rigorians into thinking that that's what it is. And Kelly Bortus and all the other jelliac people who we see living in essentially prison camps for being born under a bad sign are free. Pretty standard stuff. Any strong impressions of this one?
I think it's striking how it is sort of the polar opposite of what we just discussed for Discovery. Even though it's not like, it's not like, okay, well, you had the last season of Discovery. We mentioned that last week's episode of the Orville was like, oh, that's It's like Choose Your Pain, the Ash Tyler Vogue sort of dichotomy. But in this case, it's really weird that the 5th episode of the season matches up with Discovery's 2nd episode of like, hey, really similar situation. Here's this religious theme. We know that Discovery went on the like very light touch sort of way. In this case, the Orville crew said, screw that, just lie to them. We'll probably be dead. What do I care? My descendants can deal with the fallout of this.
That's tomorrow's problem.
Right. I mean, I think it was an okayish episode. I don't really have like I'll go rewatch this one, or am I going to hate it sort of thing. It has some nicer moments between surrounding Bortus and Kelly. It is notable for having the new Chilean security chief, Tala. I'm guessing that was just like out of convenience. They probably already had a whole bunch of storylines that are like, hey, we need a Chilean to do this. Oops, the actress who plays Alara is leaving, so let's just give him a new one. And then they wrote in, a 5-minute segment of like, all right, here's the excuse why Worf is back on the Enterprise. This would be equivalent.
Yeah. We also had these wigs and the funny ears lying around, so we thought we'd just glue them onto the next person who came into the room.
Yeah, I think that was I don't know. I question why they had to go with the same race.
Yeah.
I mean, other than convenience, but like it's not like we're really in love with that particular character. I mean, we did like the actress and we did like the role, but it's early enough in the series that they could have just gone to another race as well.
Well, we still don't know what the circumstances are about her departure, Halston Sage's departure from the show either. So maybe there's maybe they didn't have as much time to plan as they thought they would, or you never know, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I mean, but it was kind of interesting. I thought they were going to go with these people were born. No, I guess they weren't. They weren't like old plot line where you were born through natural childbirth. I thought that was why they were going to throw these guys in the jail.
Yeah, that would have been like the most Trek thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, there was a time when when I was born and when your mother was born, women pregnancy was an illness and it was treated like that, and we were born with forceps and that kind of stuff because I don't know how women could possibly push out a baby on their own, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And so it was treated like a surgical procedure, and for the last how many million years of Earth people been around, they didn't have to do that, but we went through that whole thing in the 50s, 60s, and who knows how far back where that's how pregnancy was treated, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Anywho, all right. Shall we move on to the watch list, or?
Yes.
Sure.
All right, let's move on to the watch. Well, I got a bunch of real quick hits here. I've been watching Project Blue Book. It's a new series. I think it's on. I forget what network it's on, but it stars the
History Channel.
Littlefinger from Game of Thrones actor. I've forgotten his name now, but he plays a scientist in it, and it's sort of a cross between Area 51, the X-Files, and the space race back in the 60s. So it takes place back in the day, and there's some Russian spying going on and that kind of stuff, and it's an interesting story. Yep. Another surprise, I didn't even know this movie. Maybe I knew about this movie, but I'd forgotten about it. But a movie called Morgan, which is very similar to the sort of AI Splice. Was it called Splice? The one with where they manufacture a new life form of human based on humans. This one is sort of an android thing, and it was sort of a typical big bucket of popcorn kind of movie, but along the sci-fi lines of creating a new type of /android/human clone kind of thing, and of course things go horribly wrong, and but it was actually I taped it, but I recorded it and sat back and watched it, and it was actually a surprise at how good it was actually as a movie. And The Boys, I don't know why The Boys is coming, but I can't remember why I picked this. It looked like an interesting preview.
Oh, it's awesome. It's one of my favorite comic books, actually. The Boys was a really interesting look at what would happen if you lived in a world where the superheroes were
bad.
Well, not bad, but just badly behaved. How would you govern govern badly behaved superheroes. They are superheroes. They do save people, but they also do very immoral and questionably behaved things. So this group of sort of British lads called the Boys get together and they basically police these superheroes. There's sort of this sort of pack of hooligans, British hooligans that sort of take care of the misdoings of super types. It's dark comedy. It's great. It's really, really funny, and it's really cool that they're turning it into a show.
Yeah, and the last one is I started watching it last night was called I Am the Night, and it's by the Patty. What's her name?
Patty Jenkins.
Wonder Woman. Yeah,
Patty Jenkins. Yep.
Her show. And I think it's only 4 episodes long. So it's a mini episodic piece, and it takes place back in the time around the Black Dahlia, the Hollywoodness in the LA in the 60s. And an interesting story so far. Just one episode, and I'm already ready to see the rest of it and see where it goes.
Cool.
That's my watch list. What do you got, Jaime?
Mine is an Imager album by chrisreviews.com. I found this on either the Star Trek or the Star Trek Discovery subreddit. And if you enjoyed Season 2, Episode 1, Brother, you might want to go check this out. There's a whole bunch. It's basically a recap of the episode, scene by scene, but with meme sort of titles and interpretations of what's going on in the scene. I'd suggest, maybe during your morning coffee or something, you're still trying to get the cobwebs out of your brain and see if it starts your day off in a nice way. Some of these had me chortling. Some fall a little flat, some a little obvious, and some are just brilliant. So I'd say go check them out.
Mystery Science Theater meets Discovery.
Yeah.
Nice work. All right, cool. So what do you got, John?
So I have, out of Sundance this week, we got this really, 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 really cool looking trailer. This is the most Tim thing I've ever seen. So there's this new documentary that's coming. It was unveiled this week at the Sundance Film Festival. So they have taken newly discovered trove of 70 millimeter footage from the Apollo 11 mission and paired it with 11,000 hours of uncatalogued audio recordings, and they are putting out this new documentary in theaters on Apollo. The trailer is now up on YouTube. We've got the link in our show notes, and it is breathtaking. It looks... I watched it with my eldest son, 15, and he said, "Oh, they're making a new Apollo movie." And I said, "No, this is the actual footage of the actual guys. It's that clear. It looks like you're in the room. It looks like you're on the set of a Dr. No or something. It looks so clear and vibrant. Really, really neat. Really, really cool look at this stuff, and I'm really excited to see them bring that to the theaters, because it's going to be a theatrical release. So not often that you get to see not only this footage has never been seen before, but you're also going to get to see it on the big screen. So that sounds like a movie date for you and me, buddy.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I actually bought First Man on my iTunes account the other day too, so I started watching that again, which was a really enjoyable movie. Because I grew up on this stuff, right? So when I saw the reproduction quality in First Man, it's almost like they went and got the actual hardware and used it in the show, but I'm sure they probably reproduced it for Hollywood effects. But and I've gone and hung around the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum and stood next to this stuff and looked at it. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to this. It'll be kind of cool. And again, goes back to what I was talking about earlier with the Criterion on the first what's it called?
For All Mankind
movie. Yeah, which was actually filmed by the astronauts because they were the ones with the cameras in their hand, right?
Yeah, and it looks like some of this footage might be that too. So I don't know if it's different stuff. It's mixed with stuff we've seen before. It looked like there's some shots that looked familiar, but there was definitely some stuff where it was really interesting to see. And I haven't seen as much as you have, so maybe you'll recognize more than I do. But it's a really interesting trailer. It's a little 2-minute trailer. It's gone up on YouTube just a couple of days ago, and it's really neat to see. Even just on my 4K TV, it was pretty breathtaking.
Yeah, I have a couple of box sets. The one called Spacecraft Films, which is they put together a lot of footage of getting ready for the mission and actually going on the mission. And actually, in the case of Apollo 11, they actually have, I think it was a 2-hour long spacewalk. That's all they did, and then they got back on the ship and came back home. Whereas subsequent missions, they went for 3 or 4 days and that kind of stuff, and they drove around on little rovers. But so I have that on DVD, and I also have Apollo 15, and I'm trying to get Apollo 8, which was the first time that man went to the moon. But yeah, it's cool. I mean, we'll have to definitely check this one out. I thought like when I first saw the clip here, I just looked at it while we were going through the show earlier, and I thought perhaps it was just a reproduction. But then I realized that some of the footage was vintage, and it's from CNN Films, I think, right?
It is, yeah.
They do good stuff. They do the 70s, 80s, 90s, and they've done a number of good movies lately. So, and hopefully, like the beauty of it being in the theaters is the problem with watching CNN Films is you'll get your PVR all queued up and you're all ready to watch the show, and then some disaster will happen. Some world country leader will do something asinine and they'll interrupt the broadcast, and you'll never get to see it again.
Yeah,
that happened with. I think it happened with. It was like a episode. It was a Ladies in Comedy. I think they did a series on comedy, the history of comedy. I think it's called, right. And when they got to the ladies episode, there was some big disaster, and it got preempted, and had to wait like months before it came back on the air.
Yeah. And the only other thing I'll quickly add to the watch list is at Tim's urging, and based on our conversation last week from the Spockies, I decided I was in Ottawa for a few days this week for work, and since I was it was minus 37 Celsius up there, I decided that the hotel room was the best place to be, so I watched the first few episodes of Lost in Space, the Netflix series.
Ooh.
And it's good. It's not great, but it has been enough that I definitely want to keep watching it, so I will watch the rest of it through all 10 episodes of the first season, and I did look up to see if they're making more, and they are, and it's good, and I'm enjoying it, so I'm definitely, there's enough there. I think I need to get to know the characters a little bit better, but after watching 3 episodes, it's interesting. I like the take on the take that they put on Dr. Smith, and I like the take that they've done on the robot.
Yeah, I like the take on Dr. Smith. I was going to ask you about that, but I didn't really like the take on the robot.
Yeah, again, I sort of scratched the surface a little bit. The first few episodes are pretty tense. Obviously, it's the arrival, why they are lost, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm guessing it's going to progress a little bit from there. But I'll keep watching this week, and I'll chime back in next week with my recap of the whole thing and what I thought.
Yeah. The original Lost in Space got pretty campy pretty quickly. So
yeah, this one doesn't seem to be very campy. It's pretty. It's a little tragedy porny. It's a little.
Yeah.
And then another bad thing happened, and then another bad thing happened.
Yeah, it's very much like Battlestar Galactica from that point of view. Although they don't have that big long story arc. At least I don't think they will have like they did in Battlestar. But
Yeah.
I mean, Battlestar Galactica was so much better than the original TV show or series from the 70s, or even the movie, right?
So, Dirk Benedict is rolling in his grave. Oh, no, wait, he's still alive. Yeah.
Lauren Green.
Lauren Green is rolling in his grave. Beloved Canadian actor, Lauren Green.
Yep. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I guess that's it for another week, hey? So, Jonathan, how can people get in touch with you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram as @JPKNews.
All right. And Jaime, people can get in touch with you?
I'm on Twitter as @DevWithAHair.
Right, and as I said at the top of the show, my name is Timitra, Timmitra, on the Twitcher machine as well. You'll find me, and maybe someday on Twitch TV, who knows. So until next week, we'll see you in the future. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
That concludes another episode of Spotcast, streamed to you via Subspace Signal. I'm friend of the show, Greg Keogh, joining you from Sector 001. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spotcast website at spotcast.com. You can get in touch with your Star Trek nerd hosts on the website or follow them on Twitter. They're @Spotcast. If you have feedback or questions, send them a tweet with the hashtag AskSpotcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending it to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount of Gold Press Platinum at patreon.com/Spotcast. You can find details on how to help them out on the website, spotcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future. Wishing you peace and long life.
Ya llegó nuestro mejor Black Friday y tenemos miles de ofertas toda la semana, como hasta 75% de descuento en joyería fina después del 40% de descuento extra. Y da un paso adelante con botas para ella a solo $19.99. Además, encuentra toallas Home Expressions a solo $2.99 cada una. JCPenney, celebraciones que valen la pena. Ofertas válidas hasta el 26 de noviembre en la tienda en selección de estilos. Aplican exclusiones. Ofertas de Black Friday se excluyen de los cupones. Detalles en la tienda con un asociado.